Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Guitar Talk. I'm Mike Higgins, and I'll be your host today. We like to talk about music, all kinds of music. We have a focus on roots music and American style stuff like blues and jazz, country music, but we love it all, and we love guitars. Old ones, new ones, all kinds of instruments. So that's what you're going to learn about today. And we've got a great guest for you. He's played with Ronnie Earl, Kim Wilson, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, all the great blues guys, and he's one of ours. He's homegrown, he's from Massachusetts, so we'd like to welcome Nick Adams. Welcome aboard, Nick, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. To be clear, I sat in with Kim Wilson and the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Good enough to be on the stage,
good,
sharing oxygen with those guys.
Yeah, it was great. It was a while ago, like I was just saying, another club that's gone, the old Sitting Bull Pub out in Maynard.
Yep.
Where Ronnie used to have that Wednesday night residency.
Ronnie
for
Earl,
years.
that's right.
And that was a must-go event, back in the, I'd say, early 90s.
So you grew up in Massachusetts?
I did. As far as playing guitar, I kind of got a late start, actually getting serious about it. I grew up in the Boston area, and just like anywhere else in the 70s and 80s, live music was a big deal. But as a kid, I was watching the Monkees on TV and all that kind of stuff, and I loved guitar, and I always messed around with it, but I never got serious. I didn't want to take lessons, or if I started to, I'd quit. I just didn't have the attention span. But I was always a music fan. That's a funny time, in musical history in this country. The 70s and 80s, there was a lot going on.
It sure was.
You had, the classic rock school of thought, and you had the new wave thing going on, and the video era just started. So there was all
Boston
kinds of,
had it all.
it was amazing.
Boston was a literal buffet of everything that was taking place.
Well, it's funny. I started developing an interest in this thing called blues, and I didn't. I heard about blues-based rock, and I'd read interviews with my rock and roll heroes, and they'd always mention the blues and that's how they got their start. And I had really no grasp of what that could be, because no one else was buying these records. None of my friends were, until I got a little bit older. I was old enough to go to clubs, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, if you're into this blues thing, there's a place in Brighton, in Allston, Brighton, called Harper's Ferry, and they have what's called the Blues Jam." I'm like, "Well, what's that?" He's like, "Well, a band plays, and then people that want to learn to play or just start, and they actually get to get up on the stage and sit in." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And I went down to, I think it was a Wednesday night, and back then it was Boston Baked Blues. We're hosting it with Rick Russell in the band. It was right before he branched off into the Rick Russell band. And I saw this, and my mind was blown. I was like, I can't believe that I'm seeing and hearing this on a Wednesday night in this little part of Boston that I've never even been to before, this Allston, Brighton neighborhood. And I was immediately blown away by it. And the thought of getting up and sitting in was not even on my radar.
Well, when you're looking at those guys play, Rick's a good friend of both of ours and of the show.
Yeah.
He's been on before, and it's hard to find a finer and deeper blues man than Rick.
He was great then, And I remember one thing I remember vividly was I saw him a couple of times, and every time he had like a different guitar. One time he had a Les Paul, another time he had a Strat.
We'll go there in a minute.
But anyways, so that was great, and I'm not sure if I approached him the first time I saw him, but once I saw that, I said, "This is something I want to be able to do." I didn't want to gig per se. I just wanted to know how to play the stuff.
It makes you feel a certain way.
That's what it was. I could identify with the feeling right off the bat. And within literally weeks of that, I saw Chris Stovall Brown playing in Faneuil Hall Marketplace in Boston, which, if you know that area, there's not even live anything going on there anymore.
Right.
And back then, the fact that there was live blues being played in the heart of Faneuil Hall, that's how much times have changed. But I was blown away by him. And
Chris is another friend of the show and a regular at our blues series at the Sandbar. And another just an absolute masterful musician on many instruments.
Oh, yeah.
And his
Harmonica
voice isn't too shabby either.
No, he can do it all. They both can. And I remember approaching them as time went on, probably within a month of meeting them both and taking lessons from both. And they both hosted blues jams. Rick ended up hosting Wednesdays even after he left Boston Baked Blues, and Chris was hosting Sundays. So you could go to a blues jam 2 nights a week. And so my thing was I'd take lessons from both of these guys, and then when I got up the confidence, finally I'd go to a blues jam.
And sit in.
And I'll never forget the first time I did it. I want to say it was February 22nd of 1989. I just remember walking around the corner, and the old Blanchard's neon light was kind of reflecting off a puddle. I remember saying to myself, I just played blues in front of people.
Right.
Of course, I played terribly, but it didn't
Still,
matter.
that was the opening.
I
That
got
was
up,
the
you
door.
know, and that was the beginning. That was the launch pad, you know.
Yeah, it's a style of music, and you either get it or you don't. I think people that have that aha moment like you had when you watch a great blues band, and your mind is never the same again.
Yeah,
Nothing's the same after that. It takes over your life,
it really does.
and the same way the guitar does. And most of the people I know that are great blues players all had that moment at some point in their lives where they just knew, like, this is all I want to do.
Yeah,
You know, and it's a
that's-
fantastic thing.
that's pretty much what happened, you know. And
So when did the gear bug hit you?
well, you know, it's only a matter of time before that happens, right?
You start watching what the guys are playing, and you want those
you know,
sounds.
well, the big thing with me when I first started was I didn't know anything. I really didn't know anything. I think the guitar I had was like an Ibanez, whatever, what they
Yeah.
were selling at the local music store. And so I went, you know, when I was studying with Chris, he said, well, you know, you might want to think about a Strat, you know, because at the time,
That's the sound.
everybody was doing it. You know,
Yeah.
Stevie was still big. Robert Cray had hits on the
Right.
radio. The T-Birds had hits on the radio. And they were all playing Strats, Jimmy Vaughn. So I was like, okay. And so I actually bought my first, what I would consider real Strat. It was a Tokai, like 70s or 80s Tokai.
Those are pretty good.
Real good, yeah.
Yeah.
This one was great from Chris. And I, you know, I kind of messed around with different Strats for a while. Of course, I became a big Ronnie guy because I became aware of him. I'll never forget the first time I heard him was on the radio on, God rest his soul, May Kramer's show.
Yeah.
Blues After Hours.
Yep, great
which
show.
That show was an education because she would tell you not only what song was played, but tell you a little bit about the artist and what record to find and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And she had Ronnie on as a guest one night. And I remember as she was speaking to him, in between the dialogue, they were playing his music. And I remember sitting there going, what is this? Who is
Yeah.
this? And then when I found out he was local, I was like, oh my, this can't be. And so then I go out Wednesday nights
And there he is.
sit in Bowl. There he is. And he was one of my first major influences.
Yep.
I bought all his records, and I'd read his liner notes on his records to find out whose tunes he was covering. And then I'd find their records and kind of work my way backwards that way. And so that's how I got exposed to BB and
And of course,
T-Bone,
at the
you know.
time, the rig of choice, you mentioned Chris. The first time I saw Chris, he was on the bill with Paul Butterfield, and he was playing a Sunburst Strat through a Super.
Yep. Yep.
And everywhere I went, it seemed to be that was the rig of choice. First couple of times I saw Duke, Strat and a Super.
Yeah.
That's what everybody played. And,
Yeah.
you know, it sounds like a simplistic rig, but if you know how to dial it in, there's magic to be had.
There's no better sound. You know,
You know?
I had a silver Super that I got black-faced. You know, you could convert them back to
Right.
the black-faced specs. I had that as my first Super. And, you know, I didn't know how to dial it in, so, you know what happens. You're way too loud everywhere you play, you know?
Right.
And, but I had that, and I think I've had 3 Supers. I have one now, as a matter of fact, that
Yeah.
I got fairly recently. And of all the ones I've had, this one is the one that the sweet spot comes in a little bit sooner, so it's actually usable in a lot of club environments. And plus, I figured out finally how to dial in the EQ so you can
Yeah.
actually get a tone without being too crazy loud.
There's tricks too, like if you pull out the V1 preamp tube, you can't use channel 1, but most don't anyway.
Yeah.
And it makes it get to the sweet spot maybe 1 notch sooner on
Yeah.
the dial.
No kidding.
And you can also disconnect one speaker without completely messing up the impedance on the amp.
Wow.
And again, so, you know, is where, say if you like number 6 on a Super on the volume, we know how loud that is.
Right.
Now you can put it there and it'll seem like it's on number 4,
Right.
which is still loud.
Yeah.
But it's not going to decapitate the poor guys in the first
Have you
table.
fired from the club, never to be seen again.
So yeah, so the Fender sound, I mean, that's where it all comes together for me.
The Strat, you know, and even when I used to see Charlie Beatty back then, he had a Super Reverb
Yeah.
and a Strat was one of his.
He still uses Supers.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
and-
not carrying one around on these gigs. I think they're providing them for him when he was just here.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's still a Super Reverb guy. He's got a gold top now, too, that he plays.
Yeah, I saw that. Amazing.
And folks, if you don't know who Charlie Beatty is, that's somebody to keep your eyes out. He was just in Taunton. and he was part of the Thursday Night Blues series that we have at the Sandbar Grill. And he came in with Sugar Ray Norcia, Tommy Ferraro, and he had Mudcat. He had, and Neil, just an amazing
beat that
band.
lineup.
Tommy was very helpful in putting that all together. And we all had gold tops.
Yeah.
So there were three.
That's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah. It was accidental that it happened,
Yeah,
but it
that's
was really cool to see
That's a
that.
good photo op.
It really was. So, all right, so we get into let's fast forward a little bit. So you get to see Ricky and Chris and Ronnie and all the greats. Where do you start getting into a band and getting some gigs?
Well, here's what happened. This is around that time. I was playing in a band that we were doing kind of like soul and R&B with a little bit of blues, and these guys are great. They're still friends of mine to this day. We're just doing kind of local gigs in suburbs of Boston, and they kind of wanted to go into even more of a dance type direction, which was great. Kind of doing 70s funk type stuff, and I was definitely getting deeper into the blues. So we kind of said, yeah, maybe you guys go that way, I'll go this way.
Yeah.
And so I went down to Memphis by myself on a blues pilgrimage in like 1993. I lived in this little studio apartment in Boston. I had a stereo with no speakers. When I listened to music, I had headphones. I keep one headphone on my ear, the other headphone off, so I could hear my guitar. I didn't have, so I don't know. To this day, I don't know how I got tickets to Memphis, but
Wow.
I was drawn to that place because Rick and a bunch of other people told me that's a great, Beale Street's a great hang if you want to really soak in some blues. And I went down there and I got to sit in with some people, and I'll never forget, I'm walking down Beale Street, and I'm walking next to a music store, and I hear, they play the music outside the store, and I hear this sound, and I literally stopped in my tracks. I recognized the voice as the singer from the Fabulous Thunderbirds. It was Kim Wilson, but it was the opening lick to Tiger Man with Junior Watson on guitar. Ba-bum, bum, bum. That tone. I literally stopped in my tracks. I went into the store, I said, what is that? Who is that? And so that's what got me out into the West Coast type thing. And then I went from being hyper-focused to super hyper-focused and changed my gear. I was next thing, got an arch top, tweed amps, reverb tanks, and I got really into that. I got exposed to Hollywood Fats, Kid Ramos.
All the heavies, yeah.
Rick Holmstrom, who's a friend of mine to this day. I actually bought his old white Telly years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I actually spoke to him 2 days ago.
Isn't it funny how we can be, there's broke and then there's musician broke. I've been musician broke when I was a young man, and it sounds like you've been there too.
Oh yeah.
You can't barely make rent.
No.
But man, you got a great axe, you got a great amp.
Always managed to find a good guitar.
You could find it, and you somehow sacrificed everything.
Yeah.
Because you had it in your mind, if I can get that axe, that amp, everything's going to change for me.
That's it. Yeah.
So you'd go hungry.
That is exactly what happened. You know, I was living a very Spartan lifestyle outside of music, and but around that time,
carefree, I bet you, right?
Yeah, I didn't have a care. There was no kids, no marriage, nothing.
Right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I still managed, but I found out about a guy, a drummer friend of mine told me there's this guy named Racky Thomas, who's a singer. He was playing guitar, he was playing a little bit of harp, and he also did the acoustic Delta blues thing, and he was suffering from tendonitis at the time. And and my goal was I want to be in a West Coast type band, which is jump blues with a Chicago harmonica bass. It's kind of swing and harp. I want to be like all those guys, Watson and all those guys. And so when I heard that Racky was messing around with a little bit of harp, I'm like, okay, we'll get him to play a little bit more harp, and maybe he'll be into what I do. I'll go meet him. And I went up and I met him at this blues jam he was hosting, and we hit it off right away. And he did need a guitar player, and I basically said, listen, buddy, don't worry about paying me. I just want to play. Just get me rolling with what you guys are doing. They were playing all Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson.
That's like a free college education.
They were playing Little Walter, and that was the stuff I was listening to at home. Wolf, they were doing the whole catalog, and they also were into the West Coast thing. And so we got together, and we played, and we were doing really, really well. And we had a brief departure where Racky was actually married at the time, and his wife lived in Europe, but they went their separate ways or whatnot. He came back, and we ended up winning the Battle of the Blues Bands in 1997. And then it was just off and running from there.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a great little journey there.
Oh, it was a blast, and we played together for upwards of 15 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So
what are you doing now? Are you taking gigs?
I'm taking gigs. There's been a lot going on. I've always had a day job, and so that takes up a lot of responsibility. But I got married and have kids. I met my wife through music. She used to work at the Acton Jazz Cafe, which is a place that Racky and I would play all the time. Another club that's sadly gone.
Yeah.
But life kind of happened. Racky and I went our separate ways amicably. He's kind of doing a blues and Americana type thing, which actually is really good. And if you have a chance to see him, it's a good take. Just me, my scheduling and life with, I got a 9-year-old boy and a 5-year-old, that takes a priority.
That's a big life change.
But it's kind of neat though, as much as I'm not in a committed situation, I'm playing with a lot of different people.
Right.
And in the meantime, I'm learning a lot of their material. So it's become a musical education unto itself, which
you never
really
stop
can't replace.
learning,
No.
and that's what's great about meeting new musicians, picking up their habits, their material. You just keep going, you move forward. And I say it on nearly every episode of this show, folks, is for such a small section of the country, New England has the most massive pool of incredible blues, jazz, country, and Americana musicians that you're going to find.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to Chicago and places like that, and there's other pockets, but I think this is a treasure trove here in New England.
I mean, within driving distance, Duke Robillard,
Right.
Ronnie Earl, Sugar Ray and the Blue Tones, and then whoever else might be passing through town. I mean, there's
They're
just
all right
room full
around
of blues
here.
is still doing it. And then there's the people that might be doing national stuff, but they're doing a lot locally.
So looking over here, I see you're still a Strat guy.
Yeah, I came back to Strats. For the longest time, I had a 1950 Gibson ES5, and I carried that with a 62 Brown Deluxe and a 62 matching reverb tank. That was my main rig for years. And I've had other like Silvertone and Harmony Arch tops.
Sure.
I had a Clark Tiger Tweed amp that I used once I sold my Deluxe because I just wanted something a little bigger. That was like a 310 Bandmaster. But I've only recently, within the last couple of years, gone back to Strats. For some reason, I just I noticed on the bandstand, even towards the end of my playing with Racky, I was going to Fenders more and more and more.
Yeah.
For some reason, either my ear was changing or my taste was changing, and I'm just really comfortable.
Let's let the folks hear a little bit of what they can do. We're going to take a little break, guys. We'll be right back with you, and we're going to set up and play some guitar for you. Stick around. This is Guitar Talk. Yeah, man,
Nice,
nice.
brother.
Folks, we're going to sit down and chat for a minute. We'll be right back with you. That's Nick Adams right there giving it up. All right. Welcome back to Guitar Talk, my friends. That's Nick Adams playing that Stratocaster right there. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up.
Well, I got a pretty quiet schedule, but there is one show I definitely want to mention. September 9th, down at the Knickerbocker
Yep.
in Westbury, Rhode Island. There's Bobby Christine is hosting his annual Mitch Fest, which is for Rhode Island Hospice. It's a good benefit. It's a memory of his father who passed away a few years back.
Oh.
So, and it's always got a great all-star lineup. Last year I did it, and I was playing with Willie Laws. I think Sugar Ray showed up last year, and there's always a ton of, actually, God rest his soul as well, Matt Guitar Murphy played last year's event as well. So
That's a great
It's
event.
a great take, and it's for a great cause.
And you'll be at that gig?
Yes.
All right. So, folks, you'll be able to see Nick down there, so make sure you get down and support hospice. There's not too many causes that are better than that and more worthy of your time, and hopefully a few bucks, too, if you can swing it. Right now, we're going to play a little bit more because this is Guitar Talk, and we love to play. So just give us a minute. We're going to have one more quick public service announcement while we put our guitars back on, and then we're going to play to the end. God bless you all. Thanks for tuning in to Guitar Talk. We'll see you soon.